Okay, sounds like we got at least the majority of us, so we can get started. The extension quality review thing, for those of you, I think most everyone here has already been sent documentation on it. And so you are at least a little bit familiar with it, but to sort of summarize what it is, we're starting up a program where new extensions that wish to be published on the Configura marketplace will go through a review process, a quality review process, to make sure that all new extensions in the marketplace meet uh, uh, the standard of quality that we want our users to experience. And that's something you're probably going to hear me saying a couple times while I'm talking. This is really all about maintaining standards of quality for our end users. I guess we'll just go through some of the big questions. I know a lot have had. Well, who does it apply to? The plan is, at least for now, this will only apply to new extensions on the marketplace. So for anyone who already has released their extension, is already available on the marketplace, this, at least right now, would not apply to you. I think we are currently reviewing how we're going to approach this in the future for existing extensions. I think our current plan is that we're not going to require any existing extensions to go through this, basically unless we have some users reporting issues that sort of flag it as maybe not meeting quality standards. But we're still talking about that. We're still ironing that out. So I guess be sure to stay tuned in to hear how that develops. So for what we're talking about today, it's really just about new extensions. And again, for just a bit of clarity for anyone who knows the difference, I'm not talking about, say, sub-extensions. For example, if you already have an extension out on the marketplace and you're going to be releasing a new product line extension or something like that, this is not what we're talking about. This is a one-time deal. As soon as your brand or manufacturer, however you are putting yourself out there, once you go on that marketplace for the first time, that's it. It doesn't need to be re-reviewed. So I think a good place to go, well, I have been operating on the assumption that everyone already has access to the documentation I'm going to be looking at, but if you don't, or if you want to see it again in the future, I'll show you how to find it. We do have some articles listed excuse me, in the Dev Center under the wiki on like the standards, but that's not always the easiest for everyone to find. So what you can do, you can go to support.configura.com. We have a section for My Configura and then extension publishing. And this is going to have that same documentation that we sent out. Some of these are available in like the PDF form, and some are just help articles. Just know that the PDFs that you received are the exact same content as what's available here in these articles. I don't think it's a good use of time for me to go through like every line of all of these things, because like I said, they're really readily available and you can go through them yourself in your own time. I think I would just like to call it a couple things that are worth bringing up as a group, and just sort of in a couple places give the like explain our intentions. There are a couple things in here I do want to walk through, like how do I submit my extension for review, excuse me, and at the same time, let's see if I can find the other one here. There was a question, a frequently asked question on when should I do it. I'm going to answer both those at the same time. So unfortunately, I can't show this in full detail because I would need access to a partner's extension, and I don't really want to be showing that in this webinar. But I can basically show everything you need to know. So when you come to the projects page, and you go to like your manufacturer extension, you see one of these. Now I see a lot because I'm looking at all of Configura's internal projects. But you notice most of them have this little I thing next to this I button next to them. If you click them, you can see some feedback on like where you are in the release process. It'll tell you things like, oh, you don't have a price set yet, or you don't have a logo set yet. This has been here for some time, but this will also include uh, a little item here saying that, well, if you haven't passed this review, that you still need to. And it'll have a little item saying that your extension is still pending review. And then let's see how much this is going to show me here. If your extension hasn't passed review yet, there will be a button on this page here at the top saying submit request for review. And that will automatically like kick off the process to get under review. It'll create an appropriate JIRA ticket, and I think you're even sent a link if you want to monitor the ticket, and that will get reviewed. I think what we're saying is within 5 business days. I think I'm kind of pulling from memory here, but that sounds about right. And as for when you should do this, the idea here is that this is really the final step you take to review, like putting your extension out on the marketplace. So you've gone and you've done all of your development work. You've got your extension all set up here in the marketplace, things like, assigning price and your logos and contact information, all that stuff. Basically, you've done everything. You're ready to pull the trigger. Then is the time to do the review. Because this quality review is going to include, to some extent, almost everything. In fact, part of the requirement for this review process is that you actually have your extension built and put into like the official release box on my Configura. Devs will know probably the best what I'm talking about there. You're adding your extension to the official build box, and that is actually how our reviewers will gain access to it, so that they can do their review. Now, once that is actually complete, once that review has been carried out, you'll receive back one of this filled in quality extension review report card. So this one here is sort of the empty form, but it'll be filled in when you get back with information. And this will tell you basically how your extension scored. And so this is probably going to be the focus of what I'm talking about for the rest of this session. But before I dive into this report and what's contained in it, are there any questions so far about what this is and what it's for? Okie doke. I'll just go right through it. Again, I'm not going to go through this line by line because there is a lot of content here. There's a lot of review points to go through. I'm just going to go through basically the gist of all the things we're going to talk about and maybe call out a couple of specific ones that are like maybe known sticking points. And something else I do want to point out is the fact that right now this review is pretty geared toward the office furniture industry. We do have plans in the work to expand this out to other industries such as, kitchen, medical, laboratory, industry, material handling, so on and so forth. But there is one section here in particular that's very office oriented. But let's just get right into it. So again, this is like an empty form right now, but this is the same thing you would be receiving back after the review process is completed. And basically the way it's going to work is for each section and also each item within each section, you're going to receive a score. The score ranges from green to yellow to red. Green meaning it's a full pass, no issues here. Yellow meaning it's a pass, but there are a couple of things you might want to address in the future. And then red, which is a fail, a blocking issue with the extension. installation and smoke test. So this is just what it sounds like. It's the real quick, does this extension install correctly from the marketplace and from my Configura? Does the install complete within CET Designer? And then just super quick, like, can I actually start this thing and use it? So there's points in here for like, does it install? Do catalogs download automatically when that's appropriate? And a couple things like just dropping in a couple symbols, very basic things like saving and loading a drawing, things like that, making sure that all works. So this is called that smoke test because really it's not in depth at all. It's just real quick. Does everything seem like it's generally okay? Something else I forgot to mention. There are going to be some items on here that may or may not even apply to your extension. So for example, catalogs download automatically. We know that there are a couple extensions out there that don't leverage our catalogs. This might be something that just is basically not an issue for your extension then. If your extension is catalog driven, this would be something we check for.
Paul, can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is David at RC. So what you just said, one of the extensions we recently submitted, there's a ticket in JIRA basically stating that a couple things were missing from the extension. Mm-hmm. And those were, like, for example, a finish legend. So are we now kind of redefining what has to be in there, or is it like you say, it's just basically if the feature is in there, we're going to rate the feature functionality? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, I think so. So yes, we are establishing a certain set of minimum requirements for what needs to be included in an extension. Again, the idea here is a unified user experience, right? We don't want users to go between different manufacturers' extensions and feel like they need to relearn how to use CET over and over again. If you're using one particular office furniture extension, you sort of expect there to be things like a pick list and a material legend and things like that. To not have those, or to have those come in some other form, can be really frustrating and disorienting for users, and we're just trying to avoid that. I don't think we really qualify them on how they work necessarily. It should just be, if I know how to use a pick list, I should be able to start your extension, place a pick list, and use it. That's essentially what we're looking for.
Okay. Follow-up question then. Are you guys going to give us a list of these items that have to be included in an extension?
Yep, they're actually all in this report right here.
Okay.
When we get down more specifically to that section on like Office, is where you're going to see more things like that. Like, is there a pick list? Is there a finish legend? Things like that.
Got it.
Oh, something else I forgot to point out. So yeah, there is this pass with issues, failed item, a thing for each line item in here. There's also going to be this like fillable area on the right. So if the reviewer has any feedback on a particular feature, they'll be able to include it here. Also, in the end of each section, there's basically the same thing again. You're going to get that summary, green, yellow, red, and then also just some miscellaneous notes from the reviewer. User interface. So this is very UI, UX type of focus. Basically, how does the toolbar look and gets laid out and things like that. Again, not trying to enforce like your brand logo needs to look like this. It's more like, oh, we want to make sure it appears consistently so your users aren't disoriented. There's items in here for like, make sure icon size is consistent. So we don't have like a couple buttons that are super small and some that are really big and things like that. They're just maybe not the most polished looking thing. So what kind of things are needed in here? Link to manufacturer information needs to be available. This might be links to, say, price lists, or maybe a link back to your website or something like that. Consistency of like icons, making sure they appear correctly within the toolbox. Make sure that branding is consistent across the extension. Super simple stuff like that. And this usability test. This is the section that gets, in this case, pretty focused on, well, hang on, make sure I'm not getting myself confused. Yeah, this one is fairly focused on office furniture right now. But like I said, we're working on other versions of this report that are more applicable to things like other industries. We're going to be looking at things like panels and their electrical system. And again, we know that a lot of manufacturers have a very different product offerings in terms of panel and electrical. It's not about what is offered or even necessarily what it looks like, or it's more just can a user place down, say, a Fika Office panel, and can someone put down a panel from your extension and have them work the same way and not have to relearn how to put a panel down? They shouldn't have to relearn how to get a junction or something to happen. It should be a similar user experience in all of these. Work surfaces, same thing. We're going to make sure if they work with panels, they work consistently without like freestanding or with in their own supports, things like that. Storage, seating when applicable. Applying finishes needs to be available via schemes, and they need to apply correctly. There should be a elevation view available. Sometimes different manufacturers require different things to appear in their elevation view for the sake of things like installation diagrams, things like that. But again, the experience of adding an elevation or applying an elevation should be consistent. The use and application of visibility settings. And this is one of those areas where we are actually calling out specific items that should appear like in your main manufacturer tab, like the pick list, project information, a finish or material legend. If you have access to swatches, that's definitely a very nice thing to have. If you have any custom legends for any reason, that would appear here too. And also the ability to validate the drawing. These should all be things that are available from your main manufacturer tab. We will attempt rendering some products from the extension to make sure that they render correctly. Some of the known tricky areas come in with transparent or semi-transparent materials. So we're going to be looking at that to make sure they render correctly. The calculation view should be working and functioning. If you have any custom columns that you need to appear, they should be able to be set and applied. Installation drawings should be easy to use and easy to generate. If your extension utilizes uses auto papers, then we'll go that route. Or if instead you have a special like print report, that would be how we test that. The system test, this is basically how the extension integrates with like built-in CET functionality. For example, when the user goes to create custom like toolbox view modes or custom like toolbox configs, your manufacturer should appear in that list and be able to set up configs based on that. Common shortcut keys should be fully functional with it, copy and pasting, that kind of thing. all of the different selection tools we have should be functional, like single and group select, all that stuff. And this is one that's sometimes easy to forget about: support for multiple drawings. Not all extensions necessarily consider this during development, but it is not uncommon for users to actually have multiple instances of CET running multiple drawings at the same time, and the extension needs to be able to support that. Support for working with alternatives, favorites, blocks, and also like freezing and unfreezing. Multi-level support or multi-floor support should be functioning correctly. It shouldn't be like hovering in weird places when it's on a different floor. Part tagging should be functional with your symbols, and it should be compatible with your reconfig tool. Edit graphics, of course. We do test against a specific elevation view. So if you check out the symbol extension available inside of CET that has its own elevation view that it can use, and that should be usable by all of your products. And yeah, just more of the same. We just want to make sure that the extension is supported by all of our built-in features, just that are like fundamental to CET. And then finally, the performance test. This is basically where we are going to beat up on your extension. We're really going to put it through its paces. All kinds of things that can be very like time-consuming for users. Things that can sometimes take a long time. We're going to make sure that things don't, get out of control. We're going to test like starting up your extension. That shouldn't take too long. And actually going from start to placing symbols in the drawing, things like that. Loading and saving favorites should be quick. Freezing and unfreezing snappers. Displaying the scheme dialog has historically been a pain point. We've both internally and externally gotten a lot better with this. But we still want to make sure that we can keep that quick, that the scheme can like pop up quickly and can be applied quickly to everything in the drawing. Do some real stress tests where we place a large number of snappers in a drawing. Maybe we make a whole bunch of blocks out of them and try to mass like apply blocks and break them up, things like this. Just a lot of stuff to really put your extension through its paces. Nope, I forgot about the marketplace. And this is, I was getting at before that this is why this review should be done towards the very end. Really should be the very last thing, because we're going to be testing everything, not just the extension itself, but also its presence on the marketplace. Making sure you have an icon that it's clear to understand and distinctive. Make sure all the pricing is present and clearly understood and conveyed. All the things that would appear in that checklist that I looked at a second ago. Yeah, and that's at least it for now. So again, the idea is we, after we get that request to run this review, one of our reviewer team will run through your extension, perform all these tests, fill it in with feedback, and then send the results back to you. Assuming that the extension passes, or at least passes with issues, the extension will be free to be released onto the marketplace. If the extension does fail any of these requirements, again, you'll get that feedback, and then you'll be given the opportunity to fix it up, to get cleaned up, and then you can re-request another review. One of the questions I did see in the frequently asked questions that I thought the answer was a little confusing on, so I wanted to clear it up. And the question was, can you request this review multiple times? You can in the instance where you do not pass a test. If at the very end you put in a request to be reviewed and you don't pass it, you can fix up the extension, clean it up, and then request another one. The intention is not that this be like an incremental thing. Like as you're going on creating this extension for the first time, you keep requesting more reviews to see how you're doing. It is just like a final check. But that is basically all I wanted to talk about. Does anyone have any questions on this, or is there anything you think I missed? Okie doke. Well, as always, if anyone comes up with any questions in the future, make sure to reach out to, if you're working with one of our account managers, you can feel free to reach out to them to ask your questions. Implementation partners, feel free to reach out to Elizabeth, our program manager. She'd be happy to help you out and answer any questions you have. But yeah, if there's nothing else, I guess I'm going to say thank you for all your attention, and I appreciate your time. I'm going to head and hang out for a couple minutes on the call just in case anyone thinks of anything. But yeah, thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.